Alright you guys, so I found a property that I really want to have as my second rental property. And in today's video, I'm actually going to talk to you about how I was able to get this property under contract for $20,000 less than the asking price. We can talk about what the property looks like and all of that stuff later, but today I really want to share with you this alongside with some tips. So let's get started. Alright, so I want to start off by saying that the seller was trying to sell this property without an agent. And this happens all the time. It's called a for sale by owner, or FSBO, as we like to call it sometimes. He also offered owner financing, which basically means that he himself will finance the property, and so I will end up owing him on a monthly basis to pay off the property instead of me having to go with the bank. And let me just say that owner financing is actually a great way for people without any credit or a ton of money to get into a property, because they don't have to apply with the bank. They can just be financed through the owner. Super great. All right, and because of this, I was actually able to talk to and negotiate directly with the seller. Whereas normally the buyer would have an agent and the seller would have an agent, and then the seller would have to end up paying commission for both those agents. All right, so now that that's out of the way, I found the property online. I called the seller to inquire more information, and I found out that he wanted $75,000 for that property. And the homes that are comparable to that one were also going for around $75,000. So that made me find out that if I was to buy it, I was gonna buy it at market value. And for me, that's just too expensive. Can't do that. All right, and so here's where I wanna share my first tip with you guys. And that is, don't disregard the property just because of its list price. Make an actual effort to find out more on the property, because you never know, maybe the seller has had trouble finding qualified candidates to actually buy the property, or maybe he's had trouble finding serious buyers. There's a lot of reasons why a seller would be motivated to sell and would even consider a lower offer just as long as he can get the property sold. So make an effort to really find out more about the property, and you might be able to find a nice opportunity from it. So just imagine if you skipped over the property just because you saw the price and you thought that it was too expensive. It's a missed opportunity. So anyway, going back here, the seller also mentioned that he wanted a $25,000 down payment and then $1,000 a month after that to pay off the property. And so this leads me to tip number 2. You gotta do the math. I hate doing math, you guys, but in real estate, you gotta do it. So let's do the math on the info that we have right now. He wants a $25,000 down payment on a $75,000 purchase price home. So what we're gonna do is take away $25,000 away from the list price, which will leave me with $50,000 left to pay off. Now these $50,000 are gonna be paid off by $1,000 every month, right? So what we're gonna do is divide $50,000 by $1,000 a month. And that's gonna leave you with 50 months. Now what you're gonna do is divide those 50 months by 12, because there's 12 months in a year. And then you're left with 4.1. So what that tells me is that I will eventually have paid off the property in 4 years and 2 months. All right, so in and of itself, that's not really that bad, right? Like getting a house paid off in 4 years, not bad at all. And then there's tenants in that property already that are paying rent at $1,500 a month. So even when I'm paying him the $1,000 every month to pay the property off, I'm still left with $500 extra. That's not bad at all. But the problem is he wants $25,000 down. That is a lot of money. And I technically don't have that much money to be paying on a down payment. So I came up with 2 outcomes here. What I did is basically took that information and played around with those numbers a little bit. And I came up with 2 different solutions. So the first option that I came up with was that I pay him $10,000 down, but pay him the full asking price of $75,000. When you do the math, that would leave me with $65,000 left to pay off the whole house. And I could do that in about 5 years instead of 4 with the earlier scenario. The second option was that I do pay him $25,000 down, but the purchase price would have to be brought down from $75,000 to $55,000. And the way I came up with $55,000 as a purchase price is just that that's the price that I'm willing to comfortably pay for if I have to pay $25,000 down. And in this scenario, if I pay him $1,000 monthly, I would eventually pay that house off in 2.5 years. So after I played around with these numbers a bit and came up with these 2 options, I decided to give him a call and tell him about it. I presented both options to him, and I wish I could have recorded that call for you guys, but I was trying to just be really confident, really stern, and just certain about my numbers and my offers, like the two options, right? But he wasn't really excited about either option that I presented to him, because on one hand, he really wanted the $25,000 down. But then on the other, he did not want to sell the property for $55,000 because he had bought the property for $50,000 only 2 years before. But in this case, it wasn't going to be all his way and it wasn't going to be all of my way. So we had to find this middle ground. And it was at that point that he ended up telling me that he would do $55,000 for a purchase price, but only if it was in cash. And I was just like, dude, where am I going to get $55,000 cash? I barely even have for $25,000 as a down payment. Like, there was just no way I would be able to do that. Obviously, I didn't tell him the way I'm telling you right now, but I just flat out told him I can't do $55,000 cash. And so it was in that moment that I started to look for another solution. And this is where I want to share my third tip for you guys. The third tip is basically that entrepreneurs find solutions to problems. But this really applies to everyone. If you can find solutions to your own problems or that of your bosses or your friends or your parents, just imagine the type of value that you can provide, because finding solutions to problems is how you can provide value. And when you provide value, you are looked at as an invaluable person. And that's exactly what I was able to do in this case. I was able to find a third possible option that could satisfy both parties involved. But before I tell you about the third option, I want to ask you to please be generous this holiday season and give your boy a like under this video. It costs you absolutely nothing, completely free, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. All right, so let's get to the third option. The third option is that I would go through my lender. That way, I wouldn't have to pay so much cash up front as a down payment, and then he can receive the $55,000 check from my bank, and all I would end up having to do is pay my mortgage to my lender at about $400 a month. When I presented this option to him, he was absolutely game, and a week later, we were able to sign a contract. Now, I'm on my way to acquiring my second rental property. I'm expected to close on December 21st, so this is gonna be a great Christmas present for me. So it really just comes down to not giving up on a property that you really like, being able to find all the details, playing with the numbers, and then really being confident in your negotiation and trying to find solutions to those problems that you come across while you're negotiating. And if you follow those steps, guys, you will never fail in real estate, whether you're trying to build a rental portfolio or you're trying to flip or even just to buy a house. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.